the focus of this year's conference is basically where these systems actually work and where they still like break down. And one of the areas that has gotten like blazing fast adoption, especially the complex workflow within these two functions in financial services. And with me, I have 4 different unique perspectives. We have Elizabeth. Elizabeth is the SVP of Operation at Self Financial. Before Self, she held leadership roles at Mercury and Barclays. And I believe she has spent your entire career in operation and compliance. Next up, we have Eric. Eric is the Senior Director of Operation and Support at TrueAccord. He's worked across both compliance and support. He's worked, before TrueAccord, he worked at AIG. And Eric is very, very involved in the AI space as well. I see him at a conference or workshop almost like every week. And Margaret is the Chief Technology Officer at Zions Bank. Before that, she spent 22 years at Capital One, where her most recent role focused on conversational AI and emerging technologies. And I believe at some point you served as a professor at the University of Virginia. And Omar is the Principal Product Manager at Upgrade. Before Upgrade, he held various product roles at Carvana and American Express. He's also deeply involved in AI initiative, including leading the AI adoption and customer support stack at Upgrade. Welcome, panelists. All right, before we dive right into what works and what doesn't work, I want to take a step back and just talk about like compliance and support and like CX ops in general. And why is it so hard to automate or like to scale these functions? So Elizabeth, I'm going to start with you. Why do you think CX ops and financial services specifically is so hard to scale?
Yeah, thanks, Payman. Happy to be here with all of you. So fortunately, we're lucky enough to have a really great working relationship and operations with our compliance team. And we've been bringing them along with everything we want to do and working with them. So I think the hardest part is not answering the call, not answering the customer's challenge. I think the hardest part is the follow-up documentation, the paperwork, if you will, that goes behind it, and ensuring that what we say we're going to do, we do, and that we follow through on those promises to our customers. And sometimes that takes a little longer to adopt and make sure that we're ready to go with it.
So would you say like that means most of the complexity is in the back office? How about like frontline? How about like your BPO operation? Like what is the complexity there?
Yeah, I think it's, conversationally, our most important thing is that we solve the customer's issue. And as a general consumer, I care less about you using my name and more about you getting it right for me, so I don't have to contact you back. And so we focus a lot on that first contact resolution. And a lot of times when you're talking to a consumer for that first touch, you actually require something to be passed to your back office. It could be a merchant dispute, it could be a fraud claim, what have you. And what we're trying to design is, how do we bridge those gaps and ensure that even if I have a human in the loop on that first touch, that I may not require one on the second one because I've been able to automate it and fulfill it through that processing.
Eric, going based off of what Elizabeth said, there are a lot of like complex workflow in the back office that requires like automation, and it's hard to automate. But technology has been around, like software as a service has been around. Where do you think the legacy system, your CRM, your case management, your ticketing system comes short? Like why can't they solve these problems today?
Legacy systems were built kind of single channel, single threaded, less complex workflows. There's been a paradigm shift, especially in collections where I work, where digital is the future. And now it's multi-channel, or perhaps better omni-channel solutions that are out there. But these old legacy systems aren't really built for that. So what happens is you start getting kind of these bolt-on solutions to your native CRM, and you're getting dispersed data sets everywhere. And so bringing it together is really the key. When I talk about like digital transformation, there's a difference between going digital and becoming digital. So like natively, like that change has to start at the tech stack at the foundational level. And so as new CRMs emerge or CRMs start changing, I think that's really key. But that's the struggle right now, is just these legacy systems aren't built for the new reality that we're living in with AI, automation, and whatever kind of the future holds.
So you think it's the interfaces that hasn't been defined well for these AI systems and not the capability of the system themselves?
Correct, yeah. It's how do you connect the data and how does it actually interact? I think the AI and the automation, it's all there. It's how do you pull it all together and unwind that kind of ball of spaghetti, essentially.
And Elizabeth, back to you. As you're exploring these AI solutions to solve like your back office problem, are there any examples that you have started exploring but you have hit a wall, like something that you started basically hopeful, but at the end of the road you realize like this is not working, or like your initiative like kind of like slowed down?
Yeah, we're very early stage in what we're doing, and I think one of the interesting things that we're learning about AI is you have to be slow to be fast. And what I mean by that is, and I think someone was talking about this earlier today, you want to go after your most complex cases because they're generally the hardest to solve, probably the most expensive to serve, probably some of the toughest quality and really heavy from a compliance perspective. But I think that when you try to start there without really understanding how AI adoption works, it can be a misstep. And so originally our eye was on how do we go after the most complex, and we're kind of folding that back a bit to say, okay, you know what, let's start with more simple things, understand the tech, understand what the output is, understand the business partner that we're working with, how fast they can modify. And I think that, while I'm not using a very specific what we tried and what we kind of scaled back, it's more about we were trying to bite off more than we could chew at the time, and we didn't have enough early learnings to realize that we should have started slower.
And what is the role of like change management? I know like we have discussed this previously, but even like as you automate these simple workflows, like what is the role of change management when it comes to people, like systems, like what is the challenge, or is that a challenge at all?
Yeah, I think we have a great process where from a change perspective, if anything is happening technically or with the customer, we talk about it as a company. There's a collaborative team that gets together and kind of challenges it and helps you think about it. I think probably one of the most critical parts of AI, and I'm in operations again, is bringing the people along with you and getting them to understand the change, why this change is happening, what will happen with them, how do we keep the human in the loop, how do we use their skill set to train the AI, to QA the AI. And that's been a critical piece of our path today, too.
And Omar, I know like you have probably seen tons of cool product demos and like product that are actually working. From a product point of view, why do you think like AI adoption can slow down?
I think there's a component of understanding well what it does and what it does not do. Some of the stakeholders that I've met about trying to address the gaps of agentic AI is, well, it can now understand you, right? And I try to poke deeper on the nature of that, what that means, and I think I figure out something. I think from a consumer perspective, we've become accustomed to seeing bots in the world that a lot of the answers is, I don't understand you, right? I don't understand what you're trying to say, right? And so now that we live in this AI world, it may seem that this technology can actually understand you. But the way I want to phrase that is, let's not go there. Let's just separate two things, right? One is understanding and a response. And understanding, to answer your question, can slow things down because there's a lot of there that has to be figured out, and we don't want to really tackle on that. But the response is always controlled, right? You can make things say something verbatim if you wanted to. And so making a clear, distinguished difference between those two concepts is a key thing to speed things up.
Makes sense. And Margaret, from like a CTO point of view, that you might appreciate the underlying technology and the model and the promise and these systems, what are some reasons that you're seeing like AI adoption can slow down?
Yeah, I mean, building on what the other panelists said, if you think about it, a lot of our systems, if you have bought a CRM, for example, it's a closed system. And if you pay attention to the way that your agents are working, they're not just working that CRM, they're probably going to a knowledge base, they might be going to a green screen, they might be going somewhere else, right? Now, you're trying to put an AI in place, and the question is, are you going to use that third-party AI? Well, they're only going to have access to the data that's in that system, not those other systems I just mentioned. And so as you think about your technology strategy, how do you think about, are you going to go embedded with, every CRM's putting an AI agent out there, but then what do I do with the data that's critical for the job, but yet not in the system? You might take a more build approach versus a buy approach and say, well, maybe I'm going to build an AI platform and have my agents sit above. And now I have to think about my data strategy carefully because I'm building on top of that. And so your data governance is critical and should be foundational regardless and just used well here. So an API-first strategy is important, and then cloud is going to be super important because you're going to want to be nimble, and you're not going to be bringing all of this into your data center. That's just a recipe for a lot of expense, especially when we're in a high degree of experimentation still. We're not converged as to what exactly is the winning architecture and winning solution.
And I 100% agree with that. I think like most of the failures that we have seen over the past couple of years, like where these AI systems fail to automate like a complex workflow, you can basically break those down into two groups. One is lack of context. Like lack of context is basically the instruction you provide to your models. It's your policy and procedure that have knowledge gap in them, or it's your homegrown CRM system that doesn't have an API. And those are like basically low-hanging fruits that most banks and most fintech that we work with, they're basically going after as a solvable problem. And if you're not, I think that's the first thing that you should do. But the second piece of the puzzle is basically like a weak feedback loop. And by that, I mean like you need to enable the users to provide feedback to your AI systems, take those feedback and fine-tune your system. And fine-tuning doesn't mean always like fine-tuning your model. It could be as simple as like a prompt optimization technique. But that second piece, that weak feedback loop, it's something that many are not exploring, but is a powerful tool. There's actually a company here called like Veris AI. Like what they have built is basically like a gym for your AI agent, where you can take in your agents, you can test them, you can provide feedback, and their system takes the user feedback in natural language and basically provide a fine-tuning mechanism for those AI agents to follow instruction better. You guys should check them out. It's a pretty cool platform. But yeah, I would say like context and weak feedback loop are the two that if we solve, most of these systems are actually capable of automating most of these complex workflows. All right, so we talked about where AI doesn't work today. Let's now talk about like some use cases where you guys have seen real win. So I'm going to start with you, Eric. Can you give us some example of maybe back office automation win that you have recently achieved?
Yeah, so we have a few wins on the board. So to start, True Chord is built on just a machine learning model. That's our core product, where we're in collections and we email and SMS primarily, and 96% of all consumers pay their debt without ever talking to a human being. So the promise is there right now. It's been there for a decade. But with that comes a lot of disputes and extra work, the back office that we really have to plug in. And when you're emailing at scale, there's a lot of responses and manual work. So we've had a few wins. So I'll start with actually the front office, where we are now responding to consumer emails in a very limited set right now with generative AI. We have a decade of email responses, what consumers actually are emailing in. And when you're in collections, there's not a lot of endpoints. There's only so many ways you're going down. And so it's a very safe spot where it's a bit of a hybrid of, hey, scripting and generative and give this response. And it makes it, instead of 48 business hour SLA, it's responding in a minute. So it's a really great outcome for our consumers. In the back office, we are doing two really cool things. So we are looking at agentic AI to respond to credit bureau disputes, ACDVs, directly, reading images, with some software. We do have human in the loop, of course, as part of that. At TrueAccord, we like to say human at the helm, because we are at control. So we're not just in the loop, but we're actually in control. And then most excitingly, through Spring Labs in partnership with you all, we have released Zenko to handle complaint responses, primarily from the CFPB for our legal audit and compliance team. I knew I'd be talking to a lot of Spring Labs folks, so our chief compliance officer and paralegal who were working on this are very, very hard to win over. It's like, how's it going? It's been great. They're very happy with the product, but what it's doing is it's allowing us to go get the complaints, analyze them, help categorize what is the flavor of this complaint, and then start drafting our responses back to the regulatory agencies. Why this is key, of course we're saving time with this, but we're in a hyper-growth mode. This allows us to scale quickly, safely, without adding a lot of cost as we continue to expand. The other great use case with using AI for this is it's continuously learning. So it's kind of the worst version of itself. And that continuing learning is going to continue to improve itself over time. And so that's not going to plateau. It's just going to continue to compound and become more effective for us over time. And of course, the last and probably the most important piece is just the consumer impact. Instead of waiting days or months for a reply to a complaint, it could happen in minutes or hours even. So that helps them get resolved and get kind of back on the right track of whatever they're trying to accomplish.
I promise I did not ask Eric to provide that feedback, but happy to hear. Margaret, how about like yourself, like outside of like maybe CX and operation, what is gaining adoption in your world?
Yeah, so there are two things that we're pretty excited about that I'll pick up, and outside the CX part is we are just a couple of panelists, other panelists have talked about previously, getting coding assistance going, and that has been fantastic. So if you aren't experimenting with it, let your tech teams experiment with it. It definitely is something that I think is actually going to help us, resolve things faster if you're looking at problems or just, in general, getting your solutions to market. The second thing has been getting, in our case, Copilot out into the hands of a fair bit of the community. And what was surprising for us, because we didn't expect it, was that they were able, individual users, so this was not technology involved, was able to create simple agents for repeatable questions, and then they were able to share it with other colleagues who are in the same department and say, hey, I did this so that we can always find, the answers to our questions around, what formats are acceptable, when we're working with a new commercial client, and that was something that we weren't expecting, and it just goes to show you that we all have something to learn, and then everyone's teaching each other, and so that's been a really big win.
Very cool. Elizabeth, I know you have had probably few success stories as well in the back office automation. Can you give us some examples?
Yes. Well, so, we're early adoption with you guys right now. So Spring Labs are very excited to get online. I would say one of the cool things about my company is we've rolled out a chat GPT to every user in the company. And I'm sure that a lot of folks in tech or engineering might think, why is that important? Because they've probably been using AI so frequently. I think it's critical for folks that are not in engineering and tech to learn more about these processes to be able to make their jobs faster and their impact stronger than what it may have been in the past. And so the use case I'll use is as we are building out AI for our operations teams, the processing widgets, if you will, we will need people to test that AI, to train that AI, to QA that AI. And so what I've been pushing my team to do is start building that muscle now by understanding what Chat GPT is, what it can do for you. And so they've been creating these really cool GPTs to just solve their everyday paper-pushing problems, if you will. You think about how much time do people take to build a deck every month to talk about monthly performance or quarterly performance. They can feed things into this tool now that just spits out the summary. It's still their words, right? It's still everything that they did, but it saves them hours a month in just being able to report faster on what they're doing. We've built other GPTs that kind of help unleash blocks that they may have. So transparently and humbly, I had no idea what to do with ChatGPT. And so the first thing I said to it was, how do I use you? I don't know if anyone else has done that, but I'm, making myself a little vulnerable here to tell you that that's what I did. And it was really cool. And I said, I have an hour a week to dedicate to you. This is the job I have. This is what I want to do. How do I use you? And it built this super cool training program for me. That is just every time I use it is just continuing to add to my learnings. And so I've shared that with my team. And a lot of times, if you think about a growth mindset, when the team comes to the table with blockers, I'm trying to help unblock them. And so one of the things I've been encouraging them to use is AI to do that first. Have a conversation with it, ask it to challenge you, think differently, help remove those blockers. And it's been so transformative in how we think as a team in the past month, I would say, to 6 months, that we've come up with some really great outputs that I don't know that we would have if we didn't push each other to be using the tool differently.
Very cool. Omar, how about yourself? Like, what are some early wins that you guys are seeing?
There's a lot of doc tool opportunities, basically recognizing some documents that the technology can do this much, much faster. I bring up this example because I think it's a problem that many organizations go through in the last 10 years. Oh, we need to scan this driver's license or this financial document, all these things. I've actually encountered, my engineering team told me, hey, we can do this in a different way now. And it's OCR, optical character recognition, but it's actually not that anymore. It is using agentic AI to do that, and it's much faster, delivers different results, more accurate results. We've seen really good progress with that. So I mention that because I think it's an old problem, but it's still a newer solution that should be rediscovered.
Very cool. So as you guys have heard, like AI is working in some places, and it's actually working pretty well in some like narrow areas, at least in the back office. And frankly, it's coming for some jobs, and I think that's the elephant in the room I wanted to discuss with you guys. And so far, like when we talk about like AI, we have been a little like loose. We are talking about like workflows that are basically a sequence of agents. Those agents could be different LLMs. So you still have like human in the loop or human at the helm in these processes. But as these systems become more agentic, fully agentic, they can take actions, they can change a state in your CRM, they can take actions that are irreversible, taking a payment, changing a payment date. The role of human is basically now like questionable. So like the question now is, how does the notion of work change, or what is the role of like humans in this new world? Is it just like a supervisor for this AI agent, or are we going to see more high-value roles for humans? So Omar, like starting with you, how do you think like work is going to change in the next like couple of years?
Well, let's focus on an example. Elizabeth talked about like a time optimization use case, right? Which is amazing to save your own time. I see there are ways to improve cost, be more cost effective, and also reduce risk. And those two things can come with AI. The example I have in my mind is, so there's a lot of QA processes that happens behind the scenes in operations, back office processes, right? If we want to put some solutions there, basically from the front office to the back office, a bot against another bot, right? Like basically two different bots. Then you can actually use that to scale the volume of your operational processes and still have a human in the loop. In other words, if you have a bunch of volume you have to now spend for that using humans, you can figure out how to actually address the entirety of the volume in a different way. And the human in the loop is still complement to the risk reduction process, right? So now you have a different process altogether that I think complements very well.
So it looks like in midterm, long term, I think it's a little, at least I'm a little more like hopeful what is going to be the role of the human, how like these systems like augment us, because of like Jevons paradox, as your efficiency of your system goes up, that's going to increase your consumption. And the parallel in compliance is as as you're able to automate more and more compliance testing, your regulator or your chief compliance officer are not going to stop asking you. They're going to ask you for more. But like in short term, I think there's going to be some impact. There's going to be a hit to some roles. And Elizabeth, I know you have talked about this before. Like, how are you planning to handle that short-term impact, or is there going to be a short-term impact?
Yeah, I think AI helps you scale with minimal costs, or less costs, I should say, and I think Eric hit on that earlier. I think people are critical to AI, to help teach AI, to test AI. I live by a trust and verify type of model, and what I don't want to see happen, at least with my organization, is that we put so much trust in the AI that we forget to verify it. And I think that's some of the most critical roles that humans will move into, if you will, and colleagues will move to. And then I think there's still a tremendous amount of complex use cases that have yet to be solved for. And so while everyday simple tasks, sure, could be automated, I still think there's a lot of room for people with the more complex tasks. And I honestly think there's roles for humans in the AI and the quality of it and teaching it. I can't remember, someone asked a question yesterday with Michael last night, but I think the question was more around, what do you do when you automate these simple processes? How do you make sure that your agents even know what those processes were or remember what they were? And there's a lot to be said for that and how you continue to teach the model and people. So for me, I think it's scaling at less cost and leveraging the people that we have today to just continue to evolve the model, teach the model, and QA the model.
So human at the helm, as a supervisor, okay. And like, how about like fully agentic system? Eric, like, I know like you have looked into like voice AI agents they have to be fully agentic. You have to resolve an inquiry on a phone call, which requires you to take an action, which is taking a payment from your customers. What is the role of human as we get to more like fully agentic system and moving away from workflows?
And I know earlier panels kind of mentioned this. I think the observability is really important on the QA piece. The human role really is first setting the compliance guide rails, the training of it, teaching it, here is the process. And the QA doesn't go away. But that smart IVR versus a true agentic is different, because a true agentic needs to understand nuance. It needs to understand the true intent, and then what is the next best action to take. These aren't necessarily deterministic workflows where kind of just a traditional RPA or bot kind of rules based, and there's still a place for that. So I agree with everyone. Like the role of humans is really going to be to train that. We actually just are hiring for our first like AI trainer internally, and it's someone who knows the process. It's a much more junior role that actually gives them quite a great career path to how do you train this, how do you work with it, and really eventually just manage like this digital workforce that we're going to have, just like any other kind of human management. I also think like the importance of human, like the skill set's going to look different. So at TrueAccord, we have a big initiative to really kind of build the contact center of the future, and we call it Project Elevate, because how we see it's not going to only elevate our company, but like all the roles. So like a traditional collector on the phone, if AI is going to take 80% of that, like they have to be really good at negotiating. They have to be really good at the soft skills. And I think like emotional intelligence and like the human skill sets are going to become more and more important in all industry. Like that's going to be the differentiator, because we know AI, at least right now, it can say empathy, but it's not truly empathetic. It's math at the end of the day, right? And so humans are always going to play a part, but the roles are going to look different, and hopefully it's elevated, and hopefully it's a more meaningful role. And we think those easy tasks are going away. Those hard tasks become easy tasks, and what once seemed impossible tasks now just become hard tasks because of AI. And that's what we want our people and our humans to work on, like the more complicated things, not because we can get more done, but that's just more satisfying when you go to work and you're solving problems. So I think there's always going to be a role, but it will look different, and it's happening fast. My HR team gets after me on our job matrix because like there's new roles. Like I don't have a whole matrix here because we're creating roles kind of every 6 months. Like, this didn't exist yesterday, but we have this role now as an AI trainer because it's that important to kind of the future state of our organization.
Can I just add something to that? So the other thing on that, I think, is you should expect certain metrics to unfortunately go down a bit when this happens, because you're clearing out all the easy stuff. And so it will really, you think about CSAT, you think about AHT, you think about first point of contact, you should expect, at least short term, for those to go down because of what you originally hired for versus what you may now need, or skill sets you need to help grow within your team. And I think it's important to get ahead of that message with your company to help them understand, like, hey, our CSAT's going to get hit here because they're only dealing with the most complex issues now. And so there's no average balance, if you will, with easy and complex. And getting ahead of that messaging, I think, is critical, but it will help you understand better where you need more training or what different skill sets you need. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to...
So like basically like training those muscles and upskilling people is something that you have to get ahead of it.
And you might have to pay them more because now they're only dealing with the hard stuff, right? And so you have to think about that too. Your cost per contact may increase. So your overall expense line may go down, right? And while you scale, you could grow and your expenses go down, but your cost per contact, if that's a core metric for you, may look different. And you need to understand what that looks like and be prepared for the messaging so it's not shocking to your executive team.
And that's actually something that I've heard from many like CX ops leader, that their ideal world or like their hope is to have a CX stack where all of your easy and like self-serviceable inquiry is managed by like AI. Those that are basically managed by offshore low-cost labor today. And then you have like a team of specialists in your second line or like 1.5 line, which basically are the backbone of your AI system. You might have to increase the size of that team. You might have to pay them more. But the cost that you offload in the front line is going to make up for it and more. Awesome. So maybe we can switch to some prediction and some kind of like projection that you wish to see in the next 12 months. Margaret, I'm going to start with you. What needs to happen in the next 12 months for these AI agents or like AI system to be more useful?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're looking for, being in a bank, is being able to see the ability for agents to stay sort of consistent in their lane, how you create a whole architecture between the agent that's acting, a guardrail agent, and the way that you have to do this is you have to really think about your architecture back. So for us, as we're looking at this, it's where are we placing our bets in the next 12 months so that we're ready, because we still have work to do on our modernization of our systems as we take advantage of parts of AI. There's other parts we need to do foundational work in order to take advantage of where we think AI is going with agents and really be able to take advantage of all that data and context that's there, but might be a little embedded right now.
Sense. And Elizabeth, like a 2026 thought experiment for you. Let's say it's 2026 October and you've optimized your CX stack, your CSAT is going up, your cost is going down. What had to happen for that to become a reality?
Well, AI, of course. I think every contact is reactive. The customer needed something that we couldn't solve for them, and so their reaction is to contact us. I would really like AI to take me to a more proactive state with my consumer base, to know enough about the customer, to know enough about what they're struggling with on the digital system, if you will. Maybe they're trying to make a payment, they can't figure it out. And how is AI just, hey, looks like you're trying to make a payment, or this customer is going to contact you because of A, B, and C. Get ahead of it by sending a text or get ahead of it by sending a message. But some type of proactive predictive analysis that is more of a surprise and delight. We can tell you're having a problem. We're going to help you with it before you have to contact us. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, so what I take away from that is like context is king. Fix your system, open up your homegrown system, make your policy and procedure LLM ready. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on the infrastructure. Eric, do do you have any prediction on like what's going to happen in the next 12 months? Like any use case that's going to emerge?
So I think we're going to see the continued QA agents, observability agents, continue to increase. Not just in like the voice channel, always listening, which they're there, and that's going to continue. But doing the QA of agents, doing unstructured data, pulling out data points, that QA piece is really foundational to really get into that next piece of agentic. So I think we're going to see a lot of vendors and technology that's really focused on that piece. And then I think like just big picture, you know, I was having an interesting conversation the other night with someone around AI, and everyone in this room has had more screen time than anyone in the history of the world. And I think actually moving forward as well, because I think with AI, it's going to go into like true OS form where you just need to talk. So say, I can just talk to my phone and say, hey, email Payman and Kevin about the update on Zenko. And it's going to have all the context from all of my information and know exactly what I'm talking about and do it. And then it's going to work with other agents to take care of that. We're already seeing, actually at TrueCord, we have consumers using AI to call us. We're still trying to figure out kind of the policies and procedures, how to handle. Is this a third party? Is this the actual person? Like, how do we navigate that? But I do think like these AI agents, we're going to be off screen. You're just going to talk to, and you're going to have your kind of personal assistant AI agent that's going to work with someone else's AI agent, and it's going to look very different. That's not in 12 months, but it's going to change the nature of everything.
And it looks like TCPA needs a revision, probably.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is the regulations to keep up, right? So you know even just outbound AI calls, there's this gray area. Is it pre-recorded? Is it an agent? I mean, my personal opinion is it's an agent. You can interact with it. It can do things, but the law and the regs aren't necessarily there yet, and so it's also going to take kind of those front runners to kind of carry the flag for different industries. And I know some plaintiff's attorney is just waiting for this, and we're going to get sued, and hopefully it's in the right district, the right court to say, no, like this is okay. Right now we know it's all about consent, but like that does have to catch up too. And we'll see. Hopefully it does. We'll see.
And Omar, I know like you're exploring a lot and adopting AI in operations. What are some areas that you think is going to move from prototype to production?
I think I'll answer it with your question about what's going to happen in 2026 to be successful with all those pieces. The knowledge sharing has to be there in place. So that number one, if you have a procedural writer in your ops team, that person's job is going to evolve because that person has historically done things for human beings to read, acknowledge, process. Now it's just a reframing of that and saying, hey, this is a set of instructions that can be efficiently put together for some agent to actually do the exact same thing, just through technology. And then I want to add one more piece to what Eric was talking about voice and Alyssa to talk about CSATs. I also think the consumer has to change a little bit here. It has to evolve as well a little bit. In the example of CSATs that Alyssa was talking about, I was driving here, well, not driving here, an Uber took me here for the conference yesterday, and I realized that, of course, you can rate the driver as 5 stars, right, at the end of that exercise. And you do it because you know you have some human empathy about, hey, this is somebody's, right, paycheck. I'm going to rate 5 stars if this is a really good experience. But if it was a Waymo car, right, one of these self-drivers cars, my bar for that rate is going to go up, right? Did it go too slow? Did it go to right? And so I'm more inclined to put less than 5 stars, right? So I mentioned this because I think in the example we're talking about, it's possible the consumer has to evolve and understand that, hey, there's no empathy talking with an agent, right, AI, but that's just part of what's going to have to happen for us to get there.
That makes sense. And I think one observation we've had over the past couple of years is everyone is exploring, some are adopting AI, but I think there's a bifurcation between those who are leaning into versus the ones like leaning back from AI. And I think that slight posture difference is going to probably make a big difference like in the outcome in the coming years. That's our panel. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you guys learned something new and appreciate you guys being here as well.
Thank you.